Can Florida still make a bowl game? Florida's 3-3, 6 games into the year. After the Texas A&M game, everyone pretty much chalked it up that, yeah, there's no chance they make a bowl game. However, this team has shown life. There's one thing I put number one on the bad was that Billy couldn't coach well. There's one thing he can do well is get the players to hype up around him, to build up around him, play for him. The players still really like Billy Napier. So they have that going for him. We play Kentucky next week. We'll get into that preview later. Can the Gators beat Kentucky? If they can beat Kentucky, that gets us to 4-3. Okay, now we're looking at something interesting here. We have a bye week. Maybe Billy's fired. Maybe he isn't. We'll get on to that later. But beat Kentucky. You then have Georgia. Georgia has been looking a little weak, I'd say. I mean, we beat Mississippi State by more than they did, I think. It was a 10-point game in the fourth quarter. I'm not sure what the final score was, but maybe Georgia, their trenches. I mean, if our defensive line keeps playing how it is, I think we could take advantage of Georgia's offensive line being hurt. Carson Beck being heavy mistake prone, going against Arsenal Armstrong. Maybe you pull an upset. Texas, I think that's a lot less likely. But we saw how Quinn Ewers can make easy mistakes like he almost cost them early in that Oklahoma game. Oklahoma really not taking advantage of their chance to win. Then where we get to the realistic part of the schedule, I think, Ole Miss. Ole Miss comes into the swamp. Could we be looking at the future coach of the Florida Gators walked into the swamp? Who knows? But one thing I do know, from what I've seen the past 2 weeks, past 3 weeks for Ole Miss, the Florida might be better in the trenches than Ole Miss, and it might not even be close. I went to the Ole Miss Georgia Southern game. I know that was a blowout win for Ole Miss. That's just okay. We didn't even watch it. We see the score. You see that Trey Harris is going crazy, leading the nation in receiving yards. But I was sitting there next to my friend, and I go, "Hey, Ole Miss is kind of soft," and that's coming from a Gator fan. You know, I feel like their offensive line wasn't that strong. Their defensive line is very skillful. Obviously, with guys like Princely, Emilian, the Gator transfer on the edge, Walter Nolan, someone who I think is going to end up being a first-round pick or a really good player on Sundays, and J.P. Pegues, really great players. But I don't know. When you watch them, they kind of just feel weak. Don't know if it's they have the former Gator strength and conditioning coach, Savage, Tom Savage, I think his name is. A lot of Gator fans complained about how soft the Gators look when we had them. So I think that's a game where Jason Marshall playing like an elite corner, you put him on Trey Harris. Now, don't get me wrong, Ole Miss has a plethora of weapons. They still have Juice Wells. They still have Matt Jones. They still have Ulysses Bennett, who just came back and had 100 yards against LSU. Caden Lee, Prieskorn. Excuse me. But if you're weak in the trenches, we saw what Kentucky did to Ole Miss. Could the Gators pull off the upset there? You tell me. LSU. I mean, what a game LSU and Ole Miss had, right? Definitely another team that might be weak in the trenches. Now, obviously, LSU has 2 first-round picks at tackles, but I feel like Florida's strength on that defensive line is closer to the guards in the center, going one-on-one against them or confusing them. So maybe the Gators can pull the upset there against LSU. And then, honestly, the most important game of all of those, Florida State. Florida has to win that game this year. And we're going to take a quick... So Florida has to win that game against FSU. And then I think we have the question, does it even matter? Obviously, as a fan, I want to see as much Florida football as I can. Jackson, we'll get to that in a second. as a fan, we want to see as much Florida football as I can. I'll read chats and everything. They're like, oh man, I'm done with the season. I'm already checked out. That's not me personally. That's not how I'm built as a fan. I don't care if we're going to go 0-12. I'm still going to be excited to watch every single game. We only get 12, 13, possibly 16 games in the future with the playoffs. And I got to cherish it, Who knows how long we're here. So, does it matter? Maybe not for Billy Napier, but maybe for the young players on this team, it matters a ton. We saw Billy Napier in his first season go and play Oregon State in a bowl game where Jack Miller was the starting QB in that game, and Billy kicks the field goal to keep the streak alive for Florida scoring in every single game, longest in the country. Some people hated on it. Some people were like, whatever. It was a bowl game. It does count for something. Maybe these young players like DJ Lagway, who we might get to next actually on this show, could use some benefit for playing some more different types of competition, maybe a lower group of 5 team, maybe another Power 5 school. It can really benefit those younger players on this team. And you could be putting something up on the film. We're going to probably have a new coaching staff going into next year, or you're going to be transferring. So you definitely want to have something put up for the future. Also, those interim coaches that are likely to be in place by the time we could even get to a bowl game, they're going to want to have some possibility of maybe staying. And a bowl game is a really good opportunity for them to show what they can do. So do I think we can still make a bowl game? I say yes. I'd probably put it around 30% chance. We're favorites against Kentucky, probably favorites against FSU. Then we got 4 other games for a really competitive team to pull off a big upset, especially if Billy is still here.